Thank you, Lord, for this day that we have, a day that we just get to open your word and gather together and pray that as we look through the end of your beginning chapters, we just pray that we will gain new insight and just realize the providence and the promises that you have for us. And we're just so thankful, especially for the blessings that we have in Jesus. As we go now, just again, keep us with open hearts, open minds as we study your word. In Christ's name, amen. All right. We are, as I said, the beginning or the end of the beginning. So we're going to go through Genesis 49 and 50 today. So it is truly the end. So thanks for everybody for sticking through Genesis. If you've been here, it's a long book. The beginning, there's a lot of material that can be found there. So hopefully you found it interesting and educational. I can't remember the last time we had an in-depth study of Genesis. So hopefully you found it as interesting as I have through this. I only taught half of it, I guess. So. But after this, Chris will not be back next week or the following week or the next week. So we got 3 weeks. I still got to figure out what we want to do the next 3 weeks. So if you have something really that you want to talk about, I guess hit me up after class today. Otherwise, I'll just make something up for the next 3 weeks if it's me that's teaching. Well,
it'll be something out of the Bible, probably. So,
if you have something you're dying to hear about, just let me know. Anyway, let's go ahead and we'll read chapter 49 as we start this morning. Then Jacob summoned his sons and said, "Assemble yourselves, that I may tell you what shall befall you in the days to come. Gather together and hear, O sons of Jacob, and listen to Israel your father. Reuben, you are my firstborn, my might, the beginning of my strength, preeminent in dignity and preeminent in power. Uncontrolled as water, you shall not have preeminence, because you went up to your father's bed, then you defiled it. He went up to my couch. Simeon and Levi are brothers. Their swords are implements of violence. Let my soul not enter into their council. Let not my glory be united with their assembly. Because in their anger they slew men, and in their self-will they lamed oxen. Cursed be their anger, for it is fierce, their wrath, for it is cruel. I will disperse them in Jacob, and scatter them in Israel. Judah, your brothers shall praise you. Your hand shall be on the neck of your enemies. Your father's sons shall bow down to you. Judah is a lion's whelp. From the prey, my son, you have gone up. He couches, he lies down as a lion, and as a lion, who dares rouse him up? The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from between his feet, until Shiloh comes, and to him shall be the obedience of the peoples. He ties his foal to the vine, and his donkey's colt to the choice vine. He washes his garments in wine, and his robes in the blood of grapes. His eyes are dull from wine, and his teeth white from milk. Zebulun, you shall dwell at the seashore, and he shall be a haven for ships. His flank shall be toward Sidon. Issachar is a strong donkey, lying down between the sheepfolds. When he saw that a resting place was good and that the land was pleasant, he bowed his shoulder to bear burdens and became a slave at forced labor. Dan, you shall judge his peoples, and as one of the tribes of Israel. Dan shall be a serpent in the way, a horned snake in the path that bites the horse's heel, so that his riders fall backward. For thy salvation I wait, O Lord. As for Gad, raiders shall raid him, but he shall raid at their heels. As for Asher, his food shall be rich, and he shall yield royal dainties. Naphtali is a doe let loose. He gives beautiful words. Joseph is a fruitful bough by a spring. His branches run over a wall. The archers bitterly attacked him and shot at him and harassed him. But his bow remained firm, and his arms were agile. From the hands of the mighty one of Jacob, from there is the shepherd, the stone of Israel, from the God of your father who helps you, by the Almighty who blesses you with blessings of heaven above, blessings of the deep that lie beneath, blessing of the breasts and of the womb. The blessings of your father have surpassed the blessings of my ancestors. Up to the utmost bound of the everlasting hills may they be on the head of Joseph, and on the crown of the head of the one distinguished among his brothers. Benjamin is a ravenous wolf. In the morning he devours the prey, and in the evening he divides the spoil. All these are the 12 tribes of Israel. This is what their father said to them. When he blessed them, every one with the blessing appropriate to him. Then he charged them and said to them, I am about to be gathered to my people. Bury me with my fathers in the cave that is in the field of Ephron the Hittite, in the cave that is in the field of Machpelah, which is before Mamre, in the land of Canaan, which Abraham bought, along with a field from Ephron the Hittite for a burial site. There they buried Abraham and his wife Sarah. There they buried Isaac and his wife Rebekah. There I buried Leah. The field and the cave that is in it purchased from the sons of Heth. When Jacob finished charging his sons, he drew his feet into the bed, breathed his last, and was gathered to his people. All right, that is the end of Jacob. So, here Jacob gathers his sons and blesses each of them. He had blessed, remember, Ephraim and Manasseh just before that. But here he's gathered his 12 sons before him, and he gives them the blessing. And let's kind of go through those briefly as we talk through those. The first blessing is to Reuben, his firstborn. And as you go through those, it's kind of interesting how he talks to them. I don't know. There's a few positives, but it's not really. I don't know if you're on your deathbed or you're going to your father on his deathbed, how would you want him to address you, or what would you hope to hear from your father at that point? And it's kind of a unique situation that he's able to call his sons at that moment. But what would you be looking for? What would you want to hear, perhaps? Go ahead, Ron.
I think you'd be wanting to, tell you future's going to be sunshine and roses.
Sunshine and roses.
And tells them that you're not going to prosper.
Okay. Anybody else? Go ahead. Love you, proud of you. Okay. You certainly want to hear, you've been this wonderful son, you've done, and your future is so bright that, it's just going to be amazing to you, your descendants, and on down the line. Anybody else? As we look through it. As the firstborn son, we know that at this time especially, the firstborn was so important. The firstborn got the double portion. They were the one passing the line down. Last week we saw that really Joseph's sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, were elevated up to that preeminent position and given that extra blessing. Joseph being the favorite son. But even in that, Ephraim and Manasseh were switched. But here we have Reuben as the very firstborn of Jacob, and he's the one that gets this first blessing as the 12 are brought before Jacob. And he acknowledges that he is the firstborn in verse 3, my might, the beginning of my strength, preeminent in dignity, preeminent in power. So, that you hear that's pretty good. But then it's uncontrolled as water. You shall not have preeminence. And the reason given is you went up to your father's bed and you defiled it. He went up to my couch. If you remember back in chapter 35, he actually slept with Bilhah, and it was a very brief moment in chapter 35. It's just one verse, but that event is one. And I'm sure there are others with Reuben, but that was the one that here is listed as disqualifying him as that foremost, that preeminent figure in the line of Jacob. The birthright is lost here, and if you look future, the indecencies of Reuben as a tribe, that is kind of what's kind of shown throughout their time. In the old law, the law of Moses, which is hundreds of years away here, but this specific event is listed as one of the laws, and that's in Deuteronomy 27:20. The law forbids sleeping with your father's wife, which, the fact that you have to have a law, stating that, it seems like that's one of those obvious points, but but it is specifically listed in the law. So yeah, I don't.
Well, there's a whole laundry list of other people too.
Yeah,
If you look at it, it just didn't.
it wasn't just him.
Father's wife is, all down the line.
Yeah. Well, there's.
Didn't leave anybody out.
This is true in the law, absolutely. So, any comments on Reuben?
Now, Jacob, him and Esau, they had their little thing.
Right.
And it is plural in the Greek. It's like, if you look in the Septuagint, so it's birthrights, everything, the package deal. Now, everybody wants to say that Jacob swindled Esau out of something, but he really didn't. He bought it all. That bowl of porridge was the whole 9 yards. And so merely when he pretended to be Esau, he just was claiming what he had already bought.
Right.
He was not a shifty character, as commentaries often write him up. He had bought and paid for that. And so he realized Esau wasn't worthy of it. New Testament says that too, who sold his birthrights for a bowl of porridge. And here Reuben was not.
He also is not worthy.
Yeah.
And it's interesting as you go through and look at the lines and even going into the Kings. As far as being worthy, there isn't a lot of worthiness as far as the people. All have sinned and fallen short. But here specifically, that this specific case, Reuben certainly isn't worthy of that heritage or that right. Any other comments, Jerry?
Reuben and Gad were defectors, actually, when they got close to the land of Canaan, they decided they didn't want to go any further. They were the first ones to settle.
When they come out of
Numbers
Egypt.
chapter 32.
Right.
And Moses told them, said, you're not going to settle on this side of the Jordan and not fight. You're going to have to fight.
You have to come in and help us out here as we cross over. Absolutely. Anybody else? Simeon and Levi, brothers, swords are implements of violence. Let my soul not enter into their council. Let not my glory be united with their assembly, because in their anger they slew men. In their self-will they lamed oxen. Cursed be their anger, for it is fierce, their wrath, for it is cruel. I will disperse them in Jacob and scatter them in Israel. The two are linked. Violent, vengeful personalities
are the traits that we see with them.
This goes back
to Genesis 34 when we talked about their response to the rape of their sister Dinah, how far they carried that and what actions they took. In the future, we'll see Levi is where the priests are. They don't get an inherited land. They're scattered throughout the kingdom, and Simeon stays very small and insignificant as a group and as a people. Then we get to the fourth brother of Leah, and that's Judah. Here's the one that you probably would have wanted as far as who you are, and I mean, as you go and get that blessing. And this is the first instance where Judah now is lifted up. And we see other instances where Judah is mentioned, but in this, as Jacob blesses him, your brothers shall praise you, your hand shall be on the neck of your enemies, father's sons shall bow down to you. Judah is a lion's whelp, from the prey, my son, you have gone up. He couches, he lies down as a lion who dares rouse him up. The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from between his feet, until Shiloh comes. We know that Jesus is of the line of Judah, as is David, who is coming. We have, first off, we have the Shiloh. That's the first capital. It's in Ephraim and was the first capital, but also kind of refers to that it's a messianic promise here. That staff, that ruler, ends with Jesus. He is the last king and final king, and the scepter is not going to depart from Judah. He is that one, the final priest and king, being Jesus. Any comments or thoughts on this, the promise of Judah?
Go ahead.
It says in here, Judah's greatest descendant was Jesus Christ.
Okay.
So he is along that lineage.
Well, it's Jesus that you go David, Solomon, all that. So you have your period till it gets to David, and then after David, it's Jesus, and that's the descendant. The Lion of Judah, being Christ. You have all that promise which is to come. And here's where it's showing where that lineage is to come. And you hear that, see that whole lot more places as we go through.
Mm-hmm.
The next 6, really not a whole lot thrown
Out there, Zebulun is mentioned, dwell at the seashore, have kind of sea trade, will be what he's named for. Issachar, strong donkey, lying down between the sheepfolds, but he bows his shoulder to bear burdens, become a slave at forced labor. Kind of hard labor defines Issachar's future. Dan shall judge his people, kind of a military thought with him. Gad is mentioned as far as it's raiders shall raid him, he shall raid at their heels. Kind of that conflict that's going to be there. Asher, rich food and royal dainties, known for food. Naphtali, a doe let loose, and he gives beautiful words. So that's the next 6. Not a lot there, but each of those, just kind of characteristics as they looking forward in the future for them. The last one here, or last 2, Joseph and then Benjamin. The blessing was, it first was given with Ephraim and Manasseh. Here he's specifically going with Joseph. A fruitful bough by a spring, branches run over a wall. The archers bitterly attacked him, shot at him, harassed him, but his bow remained firm. From the hands of the mighty one of Jacob, from there is the shepherd, the stone of Israel. From the God of your father, who helps you, and by the Almighty, who blesses you with blessings of heaven above, blessings of the deep that lies beneath, blessings of the breast of the womb, the blessings of your father have surpassed the blessings of my ancestors up to the utmost bound of the everlasting hills. May they be on the head of Joseph and on the crown of the head of the one distinguished among his brothers. And he was the one that delivered them from the starvation and took care of them in their time of need, even after they had sold him over. And the blessing that Jacob has on him it's kind of looking more towards the past, but he's talking about that he will be fruitful and multiply. And we talked last week about Ephraim being, the most numerous, and the large tribe coming out of, when they come out of Egypt and back into the promised land. Last one, Benjamin talks about more military accomplishments. Ravenous wolf devours prey in the evening. He divides the spoil. And then going back through it, looking at specific people from the tribes. Joseph, from them were such leaders as Joshua, Gideon, Deborah. Those were some from the tribe of Joseph. Again, just leaders and powerful people coming out. Joshua specifically is from Ephraim. We know after Moses, it was Joshua who then took over, which shows kind of the preeminence of Ephraim. The two spies that went into Canaan and were reported back. They had 12 that went, 2 came back. One was Caleb that reported positively that they could take them out. And he comes from the tribe of Judah, and you have Joshua from the tribe of Ephraim. Again, so those are the two predominant tribes coming out. Benjamin, as far as the ravenous wolf, in the morning he devours the prey. That tribe, you're looking at King Saul, the first king, comes from the tribe of Benjamin, and kind of think about the kind of leader and ruler that King Saul was, and you see more of the violence and kind of predatory nature of Benjamin. And Benjamin's always brought in as far as fighting and war, and as you're looking through in Judges, it's the tribe of Benjamin that kind of set out a little bit of a civil war. If you go into Judges 19 and 20, you can see some of that. So Benjamin was one that's one of the things they're known for, was kind of that warlike nature. But as Jacob goes through these and talks to his sons, and sees some of the future for them, and this may be part of their individual natures, but it's interesting how as he's talking, that the nature that they had, and in the years that he's seen them, this is kind of what their tribes or their people, what they're known for, what they're how they are, set up to be for the future. Anybody have any thoughts on the 12, as we go through that? Comments, thoughts? Jerry?
I think it's really interesting that the Levites didn't really get any kind of praise or anything, but the greatest leader ever for their people, for at least 40 years and probably more like 80, was Moses. And then they get to the promised land, and his descendants,
They're scattered throughout, right?
So, but God brought him up just like he brought up everybody that he needed at that particular time. And it didn't depend on how great the people were around him. It depended on the person that he wanted to do something.
It's a good point. Moses as a Levite, probably the greatest leader, other than you think of the kings, and then certainly Jesus from the line of Judah. But Moses bringing them out and causing the people to be free, and yet the people here, it's the promise is that they're going to be dispersed and, not become a nation, which they didn't become they didn't receive any of the land inheritance when they came in.
As we look at that, and one thing to look at also is,
If you're interested as far as the individual tribes and things,
Moses also gives a blessing or speaks about all the different tribes at his end also. So suggest go ahead and look at that as well. If you're interested in kind of another viewpoint, again, as seems like that's one of the things that they did as they go through. But here at the end, we have Jacob dying, and his one request is to be buried where his grandfather, where his father are buried in that cave that was purchased. Let's go ahead and he's breathed his last. Let's go ahead and we'll move into chapter 50. Look at the end here.
Jacob's died, verses 1 through 3. Joseph fell on his father's face
And wept over him and kissed him. And Joseph commanded his servants, the physicians, to embalm his father. So the physicians embalmed Israel. Now 40 days were required for it, and such is the period required for embalming. And the Egyptians wept for him 70 days. So Joseph is weeping. We know Joseph has still quite a bit of, he has almost all power in Egypt. So the Egyptians are even weeping. And his servants and physicians embalm his father. Now, one thing we know about the Egyptians, they taking care of the dead is one of the things that they are really most known for. We see the monuments that are built, and the pyramids that are built, and still finding mummies and things. So their ability to embalm is again pretty famous, but it took them a period of 40 days. I really need Phil here to discuss this part of the class. That's his forte, but I don't know. 40 days seems it's a pretty extensive process. I'm wondering if they mummified. Do you think he would they with the wrapping and everything else? It's just kind of interesting to think how they took care of him and what they did here. But the Egyptians are also weeping, and for 70 days the Egyptians are in mourning as well, which again shows the respect and the love that they have for Joseph as the commander, because as they brought Joseph's father Jacob in, and they are taking care of him. Go ahead, Shelby.
What's coming to my mind is, I guess anytime I've thought about the embalming process, I thought about the religious aspect that the Egyptians held with embalming. Because if I remember right, they took out the internal organs and set them in different jars.
they were
that
in different
represented
containers. Yes.
the gods of Egypt. And it makes me wonder if they followed the same process with Israel or not, because Joseph also goes and says, I want to go bury my father. So we know that there's this preservation side of embalming, but it makes me wonder, did they go through all the steps of how they would have embalmed someone and saved all of these things for their own religious purposes when they know that he was a Hebrew? So we also have Egyptians handling a Hebrew when they kind of detested them. So I just find it a very interesting,
We know he's going to be taken, and yeah, as far as are there body parts and organs in jars, and that, but then we know that he takes all of them to to bury him with his fathers. I mean, it's all taken. So yeah, I don't know exactly what the pieces or parts or how that goes. 40 days to do it. Yeah. Interesting to think about. We don't know. We know where his bones end up, but where the
Where are
rest
the
of
jars?
where are the jars?
Where are the jars?
Were they in jars? I cannot answer that question.
I've just never really thought about it
Yeah.
before until we've looked at it.
Jerry, what do you think?
Did they even have a airtight jar in those?
Well,
They were ceramic.
that's a good question. Did they have airtight jars? Yeah, something we don't know. I mean, we know that they're able to preserve bodies for centuries. So yeah, exactly how far they took it, but 40 days, and they did take care of it. But they are weeping also, so it shows the love that the Egyptians had for Joseph, but it also shows they're really taking care of Israel and his children. We know that they're in Goshen, and it kind of shows the preeminence that they have. This again is many years after they've been there. They've been in the land for 17 years as a family, but Joseph is still that powerful figure there, and it looks like Jacob and his sons are all pretty important in the land still. Let's go ahead and we'll go the next section here, 4 through 14. When the days of mourning for him were past, Joseph spoke to the household of Pharaoh, saying, "If now I have found favor in your sight, please speak to Pharaoh, saying, my father made me swear, saying, Behold, I am about to die in my grave, which I dug for myself in the land of Canaan. There you shall bury me. Now therefore, please let me go up and bury my father, then I will return." And Pharaoh said, "Go up and bury your father, as he made you swear." So Joseph went up to bury his father, and with him went up all the servants of Pharaoh, the elders of his household, and all the elders of the land of Egypt, all the household of Joseph and his brothers and his father's household. They left only their little ones and their flocks and their herds in the land of Goshen. There also went up with him both chariots, horsemen, and it was a very great company. When they came to the threshing floor of Atad, which is beyond the Jordan, they lamented there with a very great and sorrowful lamentation, and he observed 7 days mourning for his father. Now when the inhabitants of the land, the Canaanites, saw the mourning at the threshing floor of Atad, they said, "This is a grievous mourning for the Egyptians." Therefore it was named Abel Mizraim, which is beyond the Jordan. And thus his sons did for him as he had charged them, for his sons carried him to the land of Canaan, and buried him in the cave of the field of Machpelah before Mamre, which Abraham had bought, along with the field for a burial site from Ephron the Hittite. And after he had buried his father, Joseph returned to Egypt, he and his brothers, and all who had gone up with him to bury his father. One of the largest state ceremonies as far as burials that you can imagine here. Jacob is treated with extreme honor. You have Pharaoh's
people, you have the whole family of Joseph, you have all of his brothers with their families, and you can imagine, I mean, it's quite some distance to go back into the land of Canaan. So wagons and just the amount, chariots, it says chariots, horsemen, a very great company that goes for this funeral procession, to the point where they're even naming an area, and let's see, that Abel Mizraim, and that just means it's the mourning or meadow of Egyptians is what that means. The word is the same for mourning, meaning sorrow, and meadow, similar phrase there, but it's the place where the Egyptians mourn. So they saw it as a procession of Egyptians, not seeing it as Jacob and that company as they're looking at this. And the place was so great that's or the mourning that they had there, the 7 days of with the lamentation was so great that the people who lived there saw that and realized that this great event that had occurred in that spot. can you imagine? I mean, just how large a procession for Jacob, really for someone that the Egyptians didn't esteem them, but Pharaoh held Joseph so high that this is he was sorrowful, and he set forth this huge company to bury Joseph's father. Again, it shows just how high Joseph had risen in the land there in Egypt. Any thoughts
On the procession? Yeah, go ahead, Matt.
I think it's comparable to the heads of state or past presidents when they, there is a showing, a lying in state, and it looks like there were 70 days prior to their, going for the burial. But that would be comparable to that, except our respect is for the person who has died, like a past president. But this respect was for Joseph, who was still alive.
Absolutely.
And it's different.
Yeah, they esteemed Joseph so much that they celebrated or mourned his father's passing, and it's I guess we've had a couple of presidents die in the last several years, and we see that. But thinking of Queen Elizabeth when she died, the procession and that, and this seems grander, larger than even those. This is huge. Go ahead, Rob.
I was wondering what the locals thought, if they thought they were getting invaded or.
Well, I mean, they're naming a section of the land there after the mourning, process. The lamentations heard, and they're hearing it, seeing it. But yeah, they're probably wondering, well, who is this great Egyptian? Why are they coming here to bury them in this part of the country or world? Go ahead, Gary.
Jacob actually got a dignified burial equal to what a Pharaoh would get. Pharaohs, when they died, they got the 40 days of mummification plus 30 days of the response. So the 70 days, the other cultures, the Hebrews did not allow even 24 hours at time. So he was equal to Pharaoh in his
Even more so because
Yeah, they were putting it, that elevating not just Joseph, but Jacob, his father. And we see him, before we saw where Jacob was presented to Pharaoh, and Pharaoh and Jacob have actually a conversation and discussion. I can't imagine that a lot of people, especially, a Hebrew is going to get audience with Pharaoh, but because of Joseph and all that he did, he's elevated up to that level.
to me even more because that was 70 days for Pharaoh.
Yeah.
Yeah, 70 days, and then we had
70 days, and then we're taking,
yeah,
we don't know how many people
I mean, it had to be.
there were. It had to be this huge company that's mentioned. So, an incredible funeral arrangement. And that's the end of Jacob here. Now we get to this next section. Interesting section. If you're here Wednesday night, Steve Herkosh brought up this specific section, and it is fascinating.
Hear what happens, and we'll discuss some of this as we have time this morning. 15 through 21. When Joseph's brothers saw that their father was dead, they said, "What if Joseph should bear a grudge against us and pay us back in full for all the wrong which we did to him?" So they sent a message to Joseph, saying, "Your father charged before he died, saying, 'Thus you shall say to Joseph, Please forgive, I beg you, the transgression of your brothers and their sin, for they did you wrong. And now please forgive the transgression of the servants of the God of your father.' And Joseph wept when they spoke to him. Then his brothers also came and fell down before him and said, 'Behold, we are your servants.' But Joseph said to them, 'Do not be afraid, for am I in God's place? And as for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, in order to bring about this present result, to preserve many people alive. So therefore, do not be afraid. I will provide for you and your little ones. So he comforted them and spoke kindly to them. If you remember back, and hasn't been that, well, it's been a lot of years here past, but at least 17, but back in Genesis 45 is pretty much when he revealed himself. It was the same thing. He wept over them and told them, he forgave them and gave them, the message that if what you did hadn't happened, then our lives wouldn't have been preserved through the famine. Therefore, this was God acting in order to save everyone. That's why the events occurred as they had. So he had forgiven them at that point. But here now Jacob is dead, and I don't know if they thought that while Jacob was alive that was the only reason or the only thing that was going to keep Joseph's wrath from falling on them for the act that they had, even though he had told them that he forgave them. But you see here, they still are holding on to that guilt. They're still holding on to just realizing what they had done, and perhaps it speaks more to them. They weren't the kind of people maybe that in the same circumstance would have been as forgiving or would have done the same. So they're concerned that perhaps now that their father is gone, his wrath is going to finally be unleashed on them. They're going to get what they deserve rather than the mercy which Joseph has shown to him throughout. What do you got?
So
What's that?
Joseph was never like that, so why would they think that? I don't know, I mean.
Yeah, it's a good question. Why would they think that when Joseph had never shown that kind of attitude or that kind of behavior? What do you think? Go ahead.
Good lesson here. Joseph, he was a prophet, but he was kept in the dark all those years. When he was in the hole, he didn't know what was going on. When he was in jail, he didn't know what was going on. And he didn't know it until this light bulb moment when he ascends to the throne, and then later when he saves his brothers. And the lesson for us, a lot of people today, they want a little sign that God still loves them. They got to keep envisioning that they're having some kind of mystical experience from the Holy Spirit or something like that. If you trust God, and you don't have to look for that. And Joseph trusted God. He didn't give it up when he was in the hole. He didn't give it up when he was in jail. He just kept being a good, godly person. And that's the way we need to do. Jesus has went back to heaven. He's come back someday, and while he's gone, we need to carry on understanding that what he promised is real, and we will receive it.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Monica.
Well, you asked why the brothers still kept bringing it up, and I think it's because they had a guilty conscience. They couldn't forgive themselves. And, that's kind of what he was just saying is we have to just trust that he has forgiven it, and we got to move on instead of keep bringing it up over and over again and picking at that sore, That's gone. It's healed.
How easy is it to
Let go.
forgive yourself, let go of sins that you have done? I mean, the Bible tells us that God has forgotten those transgressions. Here, Joseph, he does show had shown back 17 years before, he had shown them mercy and forgiveness and told them it was all God's plan. We see that, our sins are forgiven, the blood of Christ washes us clean, and God forgets our transgressions. Do we forget those? Do we, it's hard. It's hard to, do we forgive others also who have transgressed against us? And, how easy is it to be as, forgiving and show this kind of mercy? And I think the biggest part, and Monica hit on it, it's that guilty conscience. We may sinned so much that we can't imagine. I think this is where they're at. Can we imagine someone forgiving us for that kind? I mean, they sold him into slavery. They themselves are like, there's no way he could forgive us. We did so bad to him, and we treated him so badly. How is it even possible that he could forgive us for that? I think that's kind of what they're showing here. Even though he said it, and all his actions have shown that he is forgiving. They themselves were like, I don't know that I could be that forgiving. So it's kind of a hard thing to do. Team.
I don't know, maybe I'm seeing this different. I've read this many times, and I think you're giving the brothers way too much credit. From what I'm seeing there, I mean, they're still doing what they did way back when they, put him in the hole and left him and then went and lied to their father. I just think that this is a testament to their character. Because had the table been turned, they would not be forgiving. And I think that's why they made up the lie to tell Joseph, because in their minds, it's like, oh, if this would have happened to us, to me, there's no way I could forgive that person for doing what they did to their brother, to Joseph. There's no way they could forgive that person for what was done. And that's just how I see it. I think it's just a testament to their character.
Well, it certainly shows the character that they have. They're not. I mean, they've been there 17 years. They have seen Joseph, and at no point has Joseph. So they're thinking, oh well, the only thing that's kept us safe for all these years, even though we've been taken care of and provided for, it's Jacob being our father. He's protected us from the wrath of Joseph. And now they're like, is it, we better lie because Jacob said, our dad said that don't do anything to us after he does. This is his last wish. Interesting point. It does speak to their character. But we've seen a lot of their character through the past. Any other thoughts on that?
Just
Mark?
in the previous chapter, when Jacob describes all the sons, when he describes Joseph, he uses 5 verses, more than any other son. And they're probably 5 of the most beautiful verses in the Bible.
It is beautiful, the testimony that it says.
He's not a guy that holds a grudge.
No.
Joseph is not a guy. He's the best of guys.
His character shines forth, theirs does not. Let's go ahead and let's read the last few verses here, and then we'll be dismissed this morning. Now Joseph stayed in Egypt, he and his father's household, and Joseph lived 110 years. And Joseph saw the 3rd generation of Ephraim's sons, also the sons of Machir, the son of Manasseh,
were born on Joseph's knees. And Joseph said to his brothers, I'm about to die, but God will surely take care of you and bring you up from this land to the land which he promised on oath to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. Then Joseph made the sons of Israel swear, saying, God will surely take care of you. You shall carry my bones up from here. So Joseph died at the age of 110, and he was embalmed and placed in a coffin in Egypt. All right. It's the end of the beginning. Real quick, Rod.
I was going to say that you can look forward in time and see how David told Solomon how to handle things after his death.
Yep.
It's kind of human.